If you're trying to build a stronger, more robust back, deadlifting is one of the best ways. As well, for anyone who's trying to improve their back development, it can be the most effective way to do so. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not well trained on it and often missing out on getting the most from it. Welcome everyone, I'm Dr. Sam Spinelli, physical therapist and strength and conditioning coach with Citizen Athletics. Today we're going to take you through 8 science-based ways to increase your deadlift. Now this isn't going to be a basic deadlift technique video, so if you don't know how to deadlift, check out the description box down below and I'll link a few resources. For everyone else who knows how to deadlift, but they want to deadlift more, this is the place. Now before we get into the bulk of the content of the video, you can go down and smash that like button, it helps out a ton. And if you enjoy this content, make sure to subscribe. Alright, let's talk about deadlifting. First point, get the bar back. This is all about leverages. If you hold a weight at your chest and then start to push it out further away from you, it gets harder to hold it. The weight didn't change, but the demand did. How hard our muscles have to work is based off something called torque. Torque is dictated by the force, but also the distance from the axis. The further out something is from the axis, the more torque that's created. When a lot of people are taught the deadlift, they're instructed to have the bar over the ball of their foot, and then they're bent over with the arms straight down and the tips of their shoulder over the bar. This isn't a bad position, but we can definitely improve it if we consider physics. Hancock 2012 examined having the bar shifted further back to start over the navicular bone, which is the back of your arch. And then you have the spine of your scapula over the bar. When transitioning to this position, there was a 43.8% reduction in horizontal bar movement. What that means is that you're essentially reducing how much demand is being placed on your hip extensors and your spinal extensors during the task. So as you're trying to lift the bar up, you actually reduce how much loading is on them, even though the bar weight stays the same, which means that you could realistically have more weight on the bar. Point 2, use more lats. This builds off the prior one. When we're in that bottom position, we want to try and have our shoulder blades depressed and that bar pulled back tight. Engaging our lats will help with this. As well, activating our lats will encourage more spinal extension, which can be beneficial for managing the demands in the deadlift as we fight to bring that bar up. Continuing from the first point, using the lats once we leave the ground will help to keep that bar back, reducing that horizontal distance. So if we keep the bar back, we can reduce the moment arm for our hip and spinal extensors. For people that struggle with this, there's a few different drills that you can try. For the first one, start standing with their arms extended holding a bar. Gradually work on keeping the bar against your thighs, thinking to feel the steel as you go up and down with the bar, practicing keeping it close. If you find that's not enough, you can set up a band that's anchored around chest or hip height, step back, and then work on keeping the band back as you go through your hinging action. This will work specifically on utilizing your lats going up and down, trying to maximize the tension with them. Then over time, it's just going to be about practicing that movement and really honing it with your deadlift. Tip 3, ditch your squishy shoes. I get it, you want to look fly for the gram, but unfortunately those fly shoes that might be lifting you up off the ground, giving you that squishy surface to push against, might be leaving pounds off the bar. By throwing away your thick shoes and going to either a barefoot or minimalist shoe, we're able to do 2 things. Reduce the distance the bar has to travel, and have a more stable base. Chulvi Medrano 2010 found that having a more stable base had a significant impact on the deadlift performance. So by simply going to a more stable base and a reduced distance, we're able to put more pounds on that bar, increasing how much you can lift quickly. Tip 4, strengthen that bottom position. Bartolome 2019 examined the isometric strength and rate of force development at different positions during a deadlift. They found that the highest correlation between someone's 1 rep max was that of the mid-shin position. This makes sense as Beckham 2012 found that for powerlifters, the bottom position was the weakest for generating force. Using this information, it guides us that it's very likely beneficial to strengthen that bottom position more than focusing on the top position. If you're someone who does a lot of rack or block pulls, you're likely missing out on this. So instead, ensure that you get a good amount of work off the floor, or possibly even doing deficit work. That way you ensure that you go through that bottom range to a good degree. If you're working off of a deficit, we want to make sure that we keep a similar position and technique. That way we don't change how we perform the movement. Take your time getting into the bottom position, not rushing the weight, and using your leg drive just like you would off the floor. Another great drill that you can utilize to strengthen that bottom position is the deadlift to the knees. Here we perform just the first portion of the deadlift and then return back to the ground. You can practice honing in the ability to use your leg drive, pushing off the ground and keeping your back angle. Since this is essentially the hardest position of the deadlift, we really want to build it up to maximize our strength to return onto the full lift. Tip 5, get your hip extensors stronger. When it comes to the deadlift, the sticking point for most people is right around the knee. Conf 2017 did a systematic review on it and found that it was very consistent for people to begin having their bar velocity slow down right around this position. And if someone was going to fail a lift, it would be there. Assuming you're building that bottom position like we just discussed, the next thing to consider is going to be to strengthen those hip extensors so that once you get out of the bottom position, you're able to keep driving through. Cho 2018 and Martin Fuentes 2019 have both looked at the kinetics and the EMG data on the deadlifts and highlight just how important the hip extensors are for the movement. By focusing on developing these muscles, the glutes and the hamstrings in particular, we're going to get a ton of benefit for being able to maximize our performance in the deadlift. In the Martin Fuentes paper, they found for the hamstrings that the semitendinosus had higher activation than the biceps femoris muscle during the deadlift. If we want to try and strengthen these to the highest degree then, we should try to select exercises which emphasize them. In the same paper, they found that the stiff-legged deadlift had higher activation of the semitendinosus than most exercises, making it a great choice to use. A brand new paper from Kwama 2020 builds off this and examined how changing foot position would impact emphasis on different muscles during the stiff-legged deadlift. Now, they didn't see a significant change for the semitendinosus, but they did see that when the foot position was changed to 20 degrees external rotation, the biceps femoris was much higher than when the 20 degrees of internal rotation or straight toe was utilized. In their paper, they didn't see a significant change for the semitendinosus, but they did see that when the foot position was rotated to 20 degrees external rotation, the biceps femoris activation was much higher. When changed to 20 degrees internal rotation, the semimembranosus activation was higher. Practically, this tells us that the stiff-legged deadlift is an excellent accessory movement to utilize in building your deadlift. In particular, if you want to play around with different foot positions, you may find benefit depending upon your respective weaknesses. Other good accessories to try to strengthen the hip extensors are movements like deep squats and hip thrusts. As well, in the Martin Fuentes paper, the unilateral deadlift was shown to have very high activation of the glutes and hamstrings, likely because it's a single leg exercise, allowing more emphasis to be placed on the legs, therefore making it a great accessory movement. Tip 6, do more volume. If you've been around the lifting world for a while, there's been a trend where it's advocated that the deadlift is a special exercise and that it shouldn't have higher volume because it's too neurologically demanding. Well, turns out that's wrong. In fact, research from groups like Calhoun 2018 have identified just how important making progress in the deadlift is based off of volume. Some people report struggling with performing higher volume work on the deadlift, and a simple solution to that is trying to break up the volume across more sessions. The Calhoun paper actually found that it didn't show a difference in how frequently people performed the deadlift as long as the volume across the week was the same. In most of our programs, we typically break up the deadlift volume across 2 and 4 sessions for the week. That way it feels more manageable and you don't feel super drained doing a ton of deadlifts in one session. Tip 7, use straps. When it comes to deadlifting, our goal is to develop the posterior chain and build vertical and horizontal force production. For many people, the grip can become a limiting factor for this. For anyone who doesn't compete in powerlifting or some other sport that heavily relies on being able to grip something, straps can be a huge relief here. Coswick 2015 found that having athletes doing rep max sets with 90% of their 1RM with lifting straps resulted in a 20 to 28% increase in force across the whole set. This indicates that for most people, utilizing straps is going to allow you to accumulate more volume. So if your grip is limiting you, you're going to be really better off utilizing straps on a more frequent basis. Or for a lot of individuals otherwise, doing your back off work with straps might allow you to get a lot more volume in as well. That's something that I personally utilize where I'll do my top set without straps and then bring them in afterwards. Tip 8, train your grip. Now you might be wondering, isn't this the opposite of the one I just said? Well, yes, but let me explain. As the paper showed for the last point, grip can be a major limiter for most athletes. If you're a competitive lifter, straps aren't going to be an option when you get into competition time, and therefore we want to make sure you're sufficiently prepared to show off your hard work. As well, for individuals, straps can only do so much, so generally having a stronger grip is going to allow you to hold more weight. To do this, we want to utilize movements like plate pinches to help strengthen the hands, and other movements to help strengthen the forearms like suitcase carries and other hard gripping options. And that's 8 scientific tips to help you build your deadlift fast. Most of these you're going to be able to implement relatively quickly and see a positive change. Some of the other movements might take a little bit longer, but if you're an individual who hasn't sufficiently trained your hip extensors or worked on any of these things in isolation, you might find a lot of benefit relatively fast. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you smash that like button down below. We appreciate it. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, make sure you subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. This video is sponsored by creatine.
Is it really?
No. But it's good for you. Take it.
Creatine?
Use it. Yeah.
It's a myth.
No.
It gives
well,
COVID.
It's a myth, it's a steroid. It's fact.
Oh, really?
It's not a steroid.
Oh, so like, that doesn't work for me.
What?